Hi everyone, and welcome back to Music Theory Thursdays. I know I've been away for a while. I started at college at Millersville University, and that's been taking up quite a bit of time. The reason I'm getting this video out to you now is because I'm on a fall break of sorts, and so I thought I'd throw in a quick, short little lesson here. Today we're going to be talking about rhythm and time signatures and how they work together and how it relates to music. So we'll flip the camera around here and we'll get started with the lesson. Okay, so now we're going to talk about rhythm duration and how to write those rhythms and how they relate to each other mathematically. So we're going to start with a whole note, which is basically just a circle, which in an actual notation software is a little bit fancier looking than just a circle, but it's just a circle. Okay? Now, this whole note is worth 4 beats. Okay? So if the beat is going like this, a whole note would be 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay? So 4 beats equals 1 whole note. Okay? Okay. So the next value is a half note, and that is basically just a circle with a stem coming up or down, either way, and that is worth 2 beats. All right, so it's half the value of a whole note. So if the beat's this, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, then a half note is gonna go 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. Okay? And so 2 of these half notes equals a whole note. 2 halves equals a whole. The next is a quarter note, and this equals 1 beat. Okay? So if the beat is this, so is the quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Okay, so now we're gonna be dividing beats. Okay? So an eighth note, which is basically a quarter note with a little flag on it, is going to be equal a half of a beat. So 2 of these eighth notes equals 1 quarter note, 4 of these eighth notes equals 1 half note, and 8 of these eighth notes equals 1 eighth note. 1 eighth. An eighth note. 1 eighth. It's math. Alright? So if the beat is this, the eighth notes are going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's going to be twice as fast as the beat. Okay? Now, the next rhythm duration is a 16 note, which is basically a quarter note with 2 flags on it. Okay? And this equals a quarter of a beat. So it's 4 times as fast as a beat. So here's the beat. 1E into 2E into 3E into 4E into 1E into 2E into 3E into 4E into. Okay, so it's 4 times as fast. 4 of these equals 1 quarter note, or 2 of these equals 1 eighth note. 8 of these equals 1 half note, and 16 of these, 1 16th note, equals 1 whole note. Okay? Now the next layer would be 32nd notes, which is just 1 more flag, and this can go on infinitely through music. You just keep adding an extra flag onto it. It becomes twice as fast. Okay? But Okay, so now I'm going to write out a pyramid, a rhythm pyramid. And so you start with your whole note, and 2 of those equals 1 of those equals 2 half notes. Okay? And each of those equals 2 quarter notes. Okay? And then these divide into 2 eighth notes. And then those divide into 2 16 notes. Alright, so that's how the rhythm pyramid works. Now, we can have what we call a triplet, which basically will fit 3 of a rhythm into the space where there would normally be 2 of. So we can split a whole note into 3 half note triplets, and then a half note can be split into 3 quarter note triplets, so on and so forth. Basically, putting a triplet onto it fits that rhythm into 3 of those rhythms instead of 2 of those rhythms. So if the beat is this 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 triplet 2 triplet 3 triplet 4 triplet 1. Okay. Okay, but that's a little bit more advanced. Okay, so now we're going to talk about time signatures. Okay, now time signatures are how we measure the beat. Okay, so the most common time signature is 4/4. Okay, and that will be written as such, 4/4. And I'll write this on the staff side so you can see how it actually is written on a staff. So it's normally written all the way in the left hand corner, but for ease of not having to cram everything over in the left corner, I'll just write it here. So it is written like this, 4/4, and as I said, it was the most common time, which is why it is also referred to as common time. So 4/4 can also be written as C for common time. Okay, now when we have a time signature, the bottom number is what gets the beat. So, and by beat I mean it's the division of the beat. So when you see 4, you see the beats being divided in 4, which means that it'd be fourth notes or quarter notes. Okay, and so which means that the beat that we're going to have in this time signature is quarter notes, and the top number is how many quarter notes. So in the example of 4/4, we are going to have 4 quarter notes per measure. Okay, one measure is going to have 4 quarter notes, or anything mathematically equivalent to 4 quarter notes. Okay, so that could be 1 whole note, 2 half notes, 8 eighth notes, 16 16th notes, 2 eighth notes and 3 quarter notes, 2 eighth notes, a quarter note, and a half note, so on and so forth. Any pattern that mathematically adds up to 4 quarter notes. Now, another common, but not as common as 4/4, is 3/4. So let's use our methods of deduction to determine what this measure is going to pertain. Alright, so if we look at the bottom number, it's 4, which means there's quarter notes because it's notes that are divided into 4. Okay? Now, now when we look at the top number, it's 3, which means that each measure is going to have 3 quarter notes. Okay? 3 quarter notes, which means that one measure will be like this, and that's a measure. And just as the same as 4/4, or it could be 3 quarter notes, or anything that mathematically adds up to 3 quarter notes. Now, when we have things like this, this adds a new rhythm, technically, to our palette of rhythms that is more of an addition to rhythms rather than an actual new rhythm itself. And so what we have is a dotted rhythm. So say we wanted to make one note fill out the whole measure. Well, we don't have one that equals 3 notes. So we have one that is 2 notes, and we have one that's 1 note, and we have one that's 4 notes. Well, the one that's 4 notes, or 4 beats, I mean, that doesn't work, period. So let's go down to the next one, a half note, which is 2 notes, or 2 beats. Well, we can do what's called a tie, and we can tie that half note to a quarter note, which makes it one. Basically, it's just addition. This line here, this arch, just means you're adding a half note and a quarter note. It's not going to re-articulate. It's not going to go 1, 2, 3. It's just going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay? So, but there's also a shorthand for this, and that is called a dotted rhythm. And so when you have a dotted rhythm, which is just that rhythm plus a dot next to it, what it's going to be is it's shorthand for taking whatever rhythm we have, in this case a half note, and adding the next rhythm down. So the next rhythm down from a half note is a quarter note, and you're going to add them together or tie them together. Here's what it means: it's adding them together, but in a musical context, it means we're going to tie them together like that. All right. So we can do the same thing in half the value. So if we wanted to have half of this value, we would take 2 quarter notes and put a dot, which really means that it's a quarter note tied to an eighth note. Okay? So dotted rhythm is that rhythm plus a half of that rhythm, or the next division down. Okay, so that's a dotted rhythm. So when you get into groups of 3, you usually use dotted rhythms. Okay. Now, anything that is divided in 2, so if we're in 4/4, 3/4, or 5/4, or anything that is divided in 2s, so quarter notes are divided in 2s, and half notes are divided in 2s. We can also have things such as 2/2, which means that the division of the beat is 2 beats, which is a half note. So we know that the beat is a half note, and the second number is 2, which means that there's 2 per measure. So there's 2 half notes per measure, which can then be divided into 4, which can be divided into 4 quarter notes or 1 whole note, and so on and so forth. It's really just changing the beat. So if you had a conductor conducting 4/4, he would conduct 1, 2, 3, 4, and he would give you every beat. This is a sweeping 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So it's just kind of where the beat is, a half time or a full time. All right. So we can get in anything that is divided into 2 beats, such as 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, anything like that, where you have like a half note or uh, a quarter note or even an eighth note that's being divided into two 16th notes. If the beat is on a division of 2, so even if you have 2/8, which should be 2/8 notes per measure, or even 3/8, which is 3/8 notes per measure. Okay, which can be written like that, or you can stem them together, which should look like this. Any eighth note, 16th, 32nd note, anything that has a flag can be stemmed together like such. But all of these the beat is the eighth note. Okay? And so all of these get divided into 2 16th notes. Okay? Now, when you have something, and all of these are called a simple meter. Simple meter. Okay? Simple meter. Now, there's something called a compound meter, which should be time signatures where the beat is divided in 3. And so they're not particularly written differently. You just kind of have to know which ones are compound and which ones are not. And most of the time, you can figure that out by how things are grouped together. So we have 12/8, for example, which is 12/8 notes, which you could say would be the same as 6/4, because 6/4 has 6 quarter notes, but those quarter notes can be divided into 2 eighth notes each, which equals 12 eighth notes. However, knowing that 12/8 is a compound meter, we would know that even though there's 12 eighth notes, those eighth notes are grouped into 3s. Okay? Now, the eighth note in a compound meter is not actually the beat, even though it seems like it's the beat. If it's a compound meter, the beat will actually be a dotted rhythm. So it'll usually be any even number dotted rhythm that you can fit into. So in the case of 12/8, you can fit the dotted rhythm that fits would be a dotted quarter. And so, or you could also do a dotted half note, but most commonly it's a dotted quarter. So you could also write this as 4 dotted quarter notes, which equals 3 eighth notes each. They each divide into 3 eighth notes. Okay? So, and then so we have things like, so it's really 4 big beats of dotted quarters. So it would be 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and as opposed to 4/4, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? So we can have 9/8, which is most commonly written as 3 dotted eighths because there's 9 eighth notes, and divided evenly across the measure turns into 3 dotted quarter notes. Okay, so this would be 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and as opposed to 3 4, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, so that is a compound meter. Now the third type is a complex meter, and this is one that is a little more tricky because it's usually an odd number, not always, but usually an odd number of beats or eighth notes, and usually eighth notes, but sometimes 16th notes. And the groupings are not equal. So one of the most common ones is 7/8. So that means that there's 7 eighth notes in this measure. Okay? Now, the grouping of these eighth notes can vary and will usually be written up top above the first measure, and will be written in mathematical equations that will equal 7. So it'll be a division that will be 2 and plus 2 plus 3, or 4 plus 3, or 3 plus 2 plus 2, or 3 plus 4, things like that. So we can divide it like this. That'd be 2 plus 2 plus 3, or we can divide it 3 plus 2 plus 2, and any other, we can do 2 plus 3 plus 2, and it basically just turns into, if I'll take this example of 3 plus 2 plus 2, it's going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 it's very disjointed and not even across the measure. Okay, and that's a complex time signature, and that is really going to be determined by the beat connections between the eighth notes, or you might even see something like, dotted quarter. That would mean 3 plus 2 plus 2, or something like that. You would see that there's an uneven beat responsibility. Okay? Okay. So, for the last thing here, I want to talk about how to count these rhythms and how each rhythm is counted as when you're playing music or whatever. So, basically, a whole note will be counted as each beat, 4 beats. So you would count each quarter note, so I'll write like 3 quarter notes. I mean, whole notes here. I'm talking whole notes. They would be counted as each beat. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And because it's basically a macro rhythm. Alright? Half notes will be counted very similarly, but only in 2. So they'll be counted 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, as such. So it's a macro rhythm, but a smaller macro rhythm. Okay? Now, quarter notes, very simple, will be counted as, I'll write 4 quarter notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each quarter note gets its own number. Okay, and if there's 5 quarter notes in a measure, then you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Now, when we get into these micro rhythms that are a division of the beat, such as eighth notes, and I'll write eighth notes. That will be counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, if you're in 3/4 or something like that. Okay, so the eighth note that is not on the downbeat will be considered and. Now, when we get to 16th notes, and I'll write 16th notes. This will be counted as 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and okay, or 5 E and 6 E and 7 E and so on and so forth, or 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and, or 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and, depending on how many you actually have. So, so all of the 16 notes that are not on the downbeats or the eighth note upbeats will be E's and U's. So, you know, with the counting, there's the eighth note, 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and then you record them 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's how it's divided. You have your 16 notes in between. Those are E's and U's. Okay, so, and now I'll talk about how to count groupings of 3. So when you're in a compound meter or a complex meter and you have a grouping of 3. So I'll write 6 eighth notes as if we were in 6/8. And that is going to be counted 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then your dotted rhythm, so your dotted quarter note, so I'll just write a stem and a quarter and a dot. Your dotted rhythm will be 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and then it'll be the macro rhythm, okay? Just like when we count half notes and whole notes, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's only being played or sung or whatever on the downbeats. So the dotted rhythm is a macro rhythm that we subdivide as 1 and 2 and the eighth notes become the actual 1 and 2 and. Now, when we have 16th notes within a triplet rhythm, so which would mean that we would have 6. It's really more like 12 notes because we'd have 12 16th notes, and they're written like this. This you can just count as 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay? Because it'd be very complicated to try to sing it as 1 E and 1 E and no, you just count 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 so the eighth note rhythm can also be counted as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you have your eighth note rhythm, and then you have your dotted rhythm. So you can count it as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Alright, so that's another alternative. Alright, so that's how you count all of these rhythms within a context. Okay? So we'll flip the camera back around and I'll say my closing remarks here and we'll get this thing going. Alright guys, so that's the end of the lesson. Make sure you subscribe. Click the links in the description to find the Facebook page, the Twitter account, the Instagram, whatever is down there, and make sure to check back for more lessons. I'll probably be home during Thanksgiving. I'll probably get another lesson out then, and then my winter break starts early December, and during the winter break I can start filming a couple more at a little bit faster rate, and then obviously during the summer I'll probably have even more time. So the channel's still going. Keep checking it out. Just know that I'm very busy and that I'm trying to get lessons out, and it's just going to be at a little bit slower rate during the times that I'm not really home and I don't really have time to film all these episodes. So just stay in touch, stay in tune, and we'll I'll get these lessons out. So I'll see you in November sometime, and I'll see you later.